Why is it that in a world where we can reach anyone at any time, we still feel unseen? You can message 5 people before breakfast, share your thoughts with 1,000 strangers in a single post, react, scroll, swipe endlessly. And yet, when the lights are off and the noise fades, there's a quiet ache that lingers in the soul. A kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone, but from being misunderstood. You ever felt that? Like no matter how much you share, no one really hears you? Not beneath the words. Not in the quiet spaces where your truth actually lives. If that resonates with you, this isn't just another video. This is a mirror, a doorway, a conversation your soul's been waiting to have. Because connection, true, soul-deep connection, isn't found in the noise. It's found in stillness. It doesn't come from performing. It comes from presence. And no one understood this better than the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And I'd add, so does every relationship in your life. If your thoughts are frantic, your relationships will be shallow. But if your thoughts are calm, rooted, and clear, you begin to build something rare, something real. This video is about more than just being liked or sounding wise. It's about learning how to truly connect with others by first connecting deeply with yourself. We're going to uncover ancient techniques, quiet rituals of attention, presence, and emotional strength that help you become unforgettable in the most powerful way without ever needing to shout for it. Because when you live aligned with your truth, when you listen with intention, speak with meaning, and show up with clarity, you don't just attract people, you awaken them. So if you've ever felt invisible in a crowded room, or exhausted by shallow connections that never quite nourish your spirit, stay with me. Because today, we're not chasing popularity. We're learning how to build something sacred. This is your moment to reclaim presence, to become a quiet force of connection, to walk the Stoic path, not for applause, but for depth. And if that message calls to something deep inside you, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to Stoic now, and share your thoughts in the comments. We're building more than a channel here. We're building a sanctuary for those who feel too deeply for the surface. Now take a deep breath, and let's begin the journey into the art of building authentic connection, the Stoic way. In the ancient world, connection wasn't built on status updates or clever captions. It was forged in the silent moments between words, in how a man listened, how he showed up, and whether his presence brought peace or performance into the room. The Stoics understood this. They believed that if you wanted to be deeply known, you first had to become deeply rooted, that your soul had to speak before your mouth ever did. Connection, they taught, is not made through charm. It's made through character. And character rests upon 4 pillars: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Let's begin where all things meaningful begin, with wisdom. Wisdom, the sacred power of listening. In a world obsessed with being heard, the wise man listens. Not just to the words being said, but to the emotions beneath them. He listens not to reply, but to understand. And this kind of listening, it's rare. It's magnetic. Because when someone feels truly heard, they begin to unravel. Not in fear, but in relief. Wisdom in connection means holding back the urge to correct, to advise, to interject with your own story. It means asking, what are they really trying to say here? Instead of, what do I say next? It's about presence, not performance. I remember a conversation I had with a friend. Let's call him Daniel. He was going through a painful breakup, and while the words he spoke were about betrayal, his eyes revealed something deeper, a fear that he was somehow unworthy of love. I could have told him she wasn't worth it. I could have tried to cheer him up or share a similar story. But I remembered what Epictetus said: we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. So I just stayed, quiet, present. I let him pour it out. And when he finished, he looked at me and said, "You're the first person who didn't try to fix it. Just being here, that helped more than anything." That's wisdom and connection. It's silent, it's steady, and it changes lives. Courage, vulnerability without performance. We often confuse courage with loudness, with standing up and shouting when the world pushes us down. But in Stoic philosophy, courage begins internally. It's the willingness to be seen without armor, to admit you don't have it all figured out, and to do it anyway. In relationships, this shows up as vulnerability, not the Instagram-filtered kind, but the kind that says, here's where I'm hurting. And I'm not proud of it, but I'm not going to hide it either. Most people are terrified of this. They think if they open up, they'll lose respect. But the opposite is true. Vulnerability, when offered from a place of quiet strength, is disarming. It invites authenticity in return. And suddenly, you've built a connection that goes deeper than small talk ever could. There's a story about Marcus Aurelius that always moves me. As emperor, he could have hidden behind his title. But in his private meditations, he wrote about his fears, his grief, his anger, his self-doubt. He said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That was his courage, not pretending to be perfect, but choosing to be real. When you drop the mask and speak from the scar, not the wound, you don't lose people. You lose the ones who weren't meant to walk with you in the first place. And the ones who stay, they're the real ones. Justice, the discipline of fairness in relationships. The third virtue, justice, is often misunderstood. People think it's about rules or fairness in law. But in Stoicism, justice is personal. It's about right relationship, about reciprocity, integrity, and holding space where both hearts can breathe. Justice in connection means you don't just take. You give, not because you owe, but because you care. It means you don't manipulate, guilt, or play emotional chess to win. You honor the person in front of you, whether or not they're watching. In today's world, relationships are often transactional. I gave you my time, so you owe me yours. I opened up, so you better comfort me. That's not justice. That's control. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." True connection doesn't thrive on imbalance. If you're always pouring but never being poured into, something's off. If someone consistently disregards your boundaries, your time, your peace, they're not building with you. They're draining you. Justice means checking in with yourself regularly and asking, is this relationship nourishing me or consuming me? Am I respecting their energy and my own? If both people aren't growing, at least one is shrinking. And that's not connection. That's slow erosion. Temperance, the magnetic power of presence. The final pillar is temperance, the art of balance, restraint, and grounded presence. This may be the most underrated key to authentic connection, because presence, real, focused, mindful presence, is rare. Most people aren't really with you. They're half scrolling, half thinking about what they'll say next, or rehearsing who they think they need to be. But temperance says, be here, now, in this conversation, in this moment. Don't rush to impress. Don't bend to please. Just breathe and be. When you walk into a room with this energy, calm, steady, unattached to outcome, you don't have to announce your worth. People feel it. Your presence speaks before your words do. It says, I'm not here to perform. I'm here to connect. Honestly, quietly, fully. Seneca once said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most of the disconnection we feel doesn't come from others. It comes from our scattered minds, our internal noise, our inability to stay still long enough to really see someone else. But when you bring temperance into your connections, when you quiet the inner rush, when you stop needing to control every response, you become a rare kind of person, the kind that others want to be around. Not because you say all the right things, but because your energy invites peace. And peace, my friend, is unforgettable. And once you've begun to anchor your relationships in the virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, the next question arises quietly, but powerfully. How do I carry this alignment into my everyday words? Because it's one thing to feel grounded. It's another to speak from that ground without slipping back into old habits, defensiveness, validation-seeking, emotional reactivity. The Stoics didn't just teach how to live, they taught how to speak. How to communicate from presence, not pressure. From depth, not dominance. Let's now step into the practice of communication, not as strategy, but as sacred interaction. Not to impress, but to truly connect. Words are easy. Presence is rare. And in the language of connection, presence speaks louder than any sentence you could ever form. The Stoics weren't masters of persuasion because they used grand words or eloquent speeches. They were masters because their words were grounded in something deeper than language. They were born from clarity, composed in silence, and spoken only when necessary. Today, we rush to speak, to fill the space, to defend, to impress. But Stoic communication doesn't rush. It resonates. Let's walk through 3 powerful, soul-shifting techniques that can transform the way you relate, not just to others, but to yourself. The pause response, reclaiming the moment. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment, then regretted it instantly? That sting of reaction that felt justified at the time, but later felt hollow or even harmful. In those moments, the Stoic response isn't suppression, it's mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This is the pause response. The ability to pause, even for a breath, between stimulus and response is one of the most powerful human disciplines. It's where your freedom lives. When someone disrespects you, when a conversation turns heated, when emotion begins to boil, that space of silence is where clarity is born. Imagine a tense conversation. Someone throws a jab, not physical, but emotional. A dig at your character, your past, your intentions. Every part of you wants to snap back. But instead of letting your ego take the wheel, you breathe. Just one conscious breath. And in that pause, you take the temperature down. You see the moment for what it is, a test. Not of dominance, but of dignity. You respond, not to win, not to wound, but to clarify. Maybe it's a simple, steady question. What do you mean by that? Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's walking away. But because you didn't react, you kept your peace. And in doing so, you kept your power. Empathetic reflection, the gift of being with. We often assume that connection is built through shared opinions or clever insights. But most of the time, people don't want your solutions. They want your presence. They want to feel seen, not fixed. That's where empathetic reflection comes in. The Stoics believed in the sacred power of understanding before advising. Epictetus taught, "Nature gave us one tongue and 2 ears so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." This isn't just metaphor, it's medicine. When someone opens up to you, try this. Instead of immediately offering advice or comparison, reflect what you hear. Say, "That sounds painful," or "I can imagine that felt really heavy." These aren't empty phrases. They're mirrors, gentle confirmations that say, "I hear you. I'm with you." This kind of response doesn't require wisdom. It requires willingness. Willingness to sit in someone's discomfort without trying to clean it up. To hold their story without rushing to write a new ending. There was a time when my younger brother called me late at night. His voice was heavy. He'd been let go from a job he loved. My old self, the fixer, would have jumped to offer tips, ideas, next steps. But I remembered the Stoic discipline of presence. I said, "I'm here. That sucks. You worked so hard for that place." Silence followed. But in that silence, something sacred happened. He let his guard down. Not because I said the right thing, but because I didn't try to say too much. Empathetic reflection isn't passive. It's one of the most powerful forms of love. Non-attachment to validation. Speak from ground, not from need. If there's one trap that poisons communication more than any other, it's this: the need to be validated, to be agreed with, to be approved of. Most people don't speak to be understood. They speak to be accepted, and in doing so, they shapeshift. They withhold truths, exaggerate flaws, shrink or swell to fit the moment. But the Stoic communicator doesn't need applause. He needs only alignment. When you speak from a place of non-attachment, your words carry a strange and quiet weight. You don't chase reaction. You don't crumble under disapproval. You speak because your truth matters, not because it needs to be echoed. Seneca said, "We suffer more from imagination than from reality." Often, we imagine we need validation in order to belong. But the moment you release that illusion, you unlock a new kind of freedom. Imagine a moment where someone disagrees with your perspective. Maybe it's on parenting, politics, love, faith. The old you might argue, defend, scramble to explain. But the Stoic within you just nods. "I see your view. Here's mine." No drama. No need to be right. Because when your truth is grounded, it doesn't need scaffolding. I once watched a friend of mine, Ava, do this beautifully in a room full of aggressive voices. A topic came up that deeply mattered to her. Everyone in the room disagreed. Loudly. But Ava didn't flinch. She didn't match their volume or shrink in shame. She simply said, calmly and without edge, "I see it differently. And that's okay." Then she returned to her tea. The room fell silent. That's the strength of non-attachment. It doesn't argue. It doesn't inflate. It just is. And in a world full of noise, that kind of self-assurance is magnetic. These Stoic techniques aren't just about communication. They're about communion, about bridging the distance between two souls with calm, clear, intentional presence. The pause response helps you reclaim your power in heated moments. Empathetic reflection invites connection through humility and presence. And non-attachment to validation gives your words strength rooted in truth, not applause. Together, they form a quiet triad of human mastery, a blueprint for speaking not to impress, but to connect. And when you begin to live this way, not just talk this way, you'll find something beautiful starts to happen. People won't just hear you. They'll feel you, and they won't forget it. But here's the truth. Even the most profound techniques fall flat if they aren't practiced. Wisdom becomes dust without repetition. Presence fades without anchoring. The art of connection isn't a moment, it's a rhythm. And like all things sacred, it grows in silence, in solitude, in the small choices you make every day, long before anyone hears your voice. So now, let's descend one layer deeper, into ritual, into discipline, into a Stoic practice that doesn't just shape how you speak to others, but how you return to yourself. Every morning, every night, because the quality of your outer relationships will always mirror the depth of your inner one. Connection isn't something you chase. It's something you cultivate, day by day, quietly, with intention. The world tells us to network, to impress, to be more visible. But the Stoic doesn't move by noise. He moves by rhythm, by inner alignment. Because he knows, the way you meet your day is the way you meet your people. To connect deeply with others, you must first connect deeply with yourself. That's not just a poetic idea, it's a spiritual discipline. And this is where the Stoics left us one of their most enduring gifts, the practice of daily self-reflection. Morning presence, beginning with the soul. Every morning is a conversation with the self. Whether you know it or not, the way you rise, the first thoughts you think, the first words you whisper, they shape the emotional architecture of your day. The Stoics began their mornings not with urgency, but with awareness. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal meditations, reminded himself each day, "You will meet people today who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." But he didn't say this to dread others. He said it to prepare his spirit, to choose how he would show up, regardless of how others did. That's the Stoic morning ritual, not control, but calibration. Before you check your phone, before the world floods in, sit still for a few minutes and ask yourself, who needs my full presence today? How do I want people to feel after spending time with me? What virtue must I embody to make that happen? Let those questions guide your posture. Not just physical, but emotional. Speak a simple affirmation into your soul. Something like, I will meet others with calm. I will listen more than I speak. I will bring peace into every space I enter. This isn't self-help fluff. It's alignment. And when you begin the day like this, your energy shifts. You don't walk into rooms needing validation. You carry something sacred, stillness, and others feel it. The practice of intentional listening, presence in action. Throughout the day, practice one of the most undervalued Stoic arts, intentional listening. In conversations, discipline yourself to pause before responding, to stay fully with the other person, to resist the urge to relate every story back to you. As Seneca said, nature gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth that we might listen more. Don't just hear, receive. Whether it's your partner venting after work, a child explaining something small, or a colleague trying to be understood, see it as a sacred act. To truly listen is to offer sanctuary. It's saying, without words, you matter here. Try this small challenge. For one entire day, aim to speak 30% less. Not to withdraw, but to heighten your attention. Let others fill the space. You'll notice people open more, share more, trust more. Not because you said the perfect thing, but because you created a space where they didn't need to perform. And here's the secret. The more you offer this kind of presence, the more connected you feel. Because depth doesn't come from what you say. It comes from how you hold space for others to be real. Evening review, returning to the inner mirror. The Stoic day doesn't end when the sun sets. It ends in reflection, in a return to the inner mirror. Epictetus advised his students to ask themselves nightly, what did I do well? What did I do poorly? What could I do differently? This isn't guilt. It's growth. And when it comes to connection, this evening practice is gold. Here's how you can shape it. At the end of the day, sit in silence for 5 minutes. Ask yourself, did I truly see the people I interacted with? Where did I react from ego instead of respond from understanding? Did I rush a moment that deserved stillness? Where was I generous with my attention? And where did I hold back? Write it down, not in paragraphs, just observations. This is your emotional audit, your soul's inventory. Over time, these small moments of reflection become a map, guiding you to deeper awareness, more grace, more intentional presence. One night, after a difficult conversation with someone I care about, I sat with these questions. I realized that I had listened to reply, not to understand. My ego had wanted to be right, to be seen as wise. But I had missed the opportunity to simply be with them in their hurt. That insight changed how I approached every conversation afterward. And it came not from reading more, but from reviewing more. The anchor of virtue, living the philosophy, not preaching it. All Stoic practice flows from one source, virtue. You can journal, meditate, or quote Aurelius all day, but if your life doesn't embody wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, you're just memorizing philosophy, not living it. So ask yourself, each morning and night, did I act with wisdom today? Did I choose clarity over reaction? Did I have the courage to be real, even if it felt uncomfortable? Did I practice justice, balancing my needs with those of others? Did I show temperance, staying centered, calm, grounded? This is not about perfection. The Stoics never aimed for flawlessness. They aimed for consistency, for inner strength, for clarity in the chaos. That's what your practice must become, not a performance, but a quiet revolution inside your soul. One that reshapes how you show up. One that transforms how you connect. One that, over time, helps you become not just someone others trust, but someone you trust. Because at the root of all real connection is integrity. The Stoic path to authentic connection isn't loud. It's lived. It's felt in the way you enter a room, in the calm you carry in conversation, in the eyes that truly see the person in front of you. Through morning clarity, daily presence, and evening reflection, you don't just improve relationships, you deepen your humanity. Not overnight, but every day, bit by bit, breath by breath, virtue by virtue, the still force of real connection. There comes a point in every seeker's journey where information alone is no longer enough, where insight must evolve into embodiment, and wisdom, true, anchored, lived wisdom, becomes the language of our presence, not just the words we say. That's where you are right now. You've seen what real connection asks of you. Not performance, not perfection, but presence, courage, listening, stillness. It's tempting to walk back into the world tomorrow and keep doing what's familiar, talking fast, multitasking through moments, hiding your truth behind polished lines and perfect timing. But deep down, you know that won't satisfy, because you don't want to be impressive anymore. You want to be felt. You want to be known. You want to be real. And that begins when you dare to show up differently. You see, most people live on the surface, not because they're shallow, but because they're afraid. They fear what silence might reveal. They fear being misunderstood. They fear that if they slow down, the world will pass them by. But you're not most people. You're someone who's beginning to understand that silence is not emptiness. It's where the soul speaks loudest. That stillness is not weakness. It's where presence becomes power. That being fully with another human being, without distraction, without defense, is one of the rarest and most beautiful acts in modern life. And the more you live from this place, the more you become a lighthouse in a world full of noise. A man or woman who doesn't need to dominate the conversation to be remembered, who doesn't need to be liked by everyone to be respected by the right ones, who doesn't just talk about stoicism, but embodies it in every breath, every word, every space they enter. This is the kind of connection the Stoics pointed toward. Not dependent, not performative, but authentic, rooted, and deeply human. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." That's where this journey leads you, back into yourself. And from that center, everything changes. You become the friend people can open up to without fear. The partner who brings peace, not pressure. The leader who guides without needing to control. the soul others feel safe around, not because you have all the answers, but because you've made peace with your own depth. So take this moment, this quiet knowing inside you, and guard it. Water it. Practice it. And in time, you'll see. Every small act of listening becomes a bridge. Every moment of reflection becomes a light. Every choice to speak with presence, not performance, becomes a doorway into something sacred. Before you go, I invite you, gently, sincerely, to share what resonated with you in the comments below. Not just as feedback, but as a way of saying, I'm walking this path too. If you felt seen in this video, if it reminded you of who you want to become, consider subscribing to Stoic now. We're building more than content here. We're building a quiet movement for the thinkers, the feelers, the ones who want to live deeper. And if you found value here, leave a like. Not for me, but to keep this message alive for someone else who may desperately need to hear it. Let this be your new beginning. And remember, connection doesn't start with the right words. It starts with the right presence. One breath, one truth, one moment at a time.